Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the ISO, I'd like to welcome you to the annual summer ATC assessment stakeholder call to review and discuss the priority wheeling through monthly available transfer capability, values, and its components and expected conditions for the upcoming summer. So these ATC values are posted to OASIS under the transmission heading and the ATC for PWT requests subheading. My name is Elena Kopolov-Alford, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the web conference today. I'm joined by Abdul Muhammad Ali, Manager in Resource Adequacy Operations Engineering, and Licheng Jin, Senior Manager in Operations Planning for the Southern Region. And possibly Milos Vasanis will be joining us as the Regional Market Sector Manager in Market Policy Development. So before we get started, I'm going to have some housekeeping reminders and just a quick reminder that this presentation and any materials related to this are going to be available in the calendar event. If you go to the ISO calendar, this presentation will be linked there. So some housekeeping reminders: this call is being recorded for informational and convenience purposes. Any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. The meeting is structured to stimulate dialogue and engage different perspectives, but please keep comments professional and respectful, and try and be brief and refrain from repeating what's already been said so we can manage our time efficiently. To raise your hand, first make sure you open the participant and chat panels. They are located on the bottom right of your screen, and that way you can see any chats that have been entered, and you can enter your own chat questions, and also be able to find the raise hand button at the bottom of the participant panel. It's kind of hidden in this version of WebEx. And if you dialed in outside of the WebEx, you can press *3 to get into the question queue. And please remember to state your name and affiliation before making your comment or asking your question. If you need technical assistance during the meeting, send a chat to the event producer. They show up as Intelor Events, and today's producer is Stacy. And you could send your questions in the chat to all panelists or to myself, Elena Kopolov-Alford. So our agenda for this morning, I'm going to hand it over to Abdul for the summer 2025 monthly ATC numbers, and we'll take questions at the end of that section. So if you raise your hand, we'll wait until Abdul gets through all the slides, and then we'll move over to Licheng for the Path 26 assessment and take questions at the end of that section. And then we'll have our reminders, questions, next steps with Abdul to wrap up at the end. So I'm going to hand it over to Abdul.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Elena, and good morning, everyone. My name is Abdul Muhammad Ali. I'm the Manager of Resource Adequacy Operations Engineering. Today's call is a review of the summer ATC numbers. Just to give you some background, last year, June 1st of last year, 2024, we went live with this new priority wheel-through reservation process. This new process would allow the people who are looking to get high priority on their wheel-throughs to request some of that remaining or ATC available transfer capability at the CAISO enterprise. They would be able to request some of that megawatts to get high priority wheel-through through the CAISO BAA. That process that we launched is broken down into a monthly process that allows participants to request reservations on a monthly basis up to 13 months in advance. And that would be a rolling monthly process with an open and closed window every month. And then we also have another window in the daily process, and that is a 7-day rolling window that would allow participants to request and reserve priority wheel-throughs through that daily process on a shorter term for that 7 days in advance. Also, it's a rolling process. We have all the deadlines and the due dates and the windows posted on the website and in the BPM, Market Operations BPM, so people can look at that. And so part of that whole new process, we built and launched a new tool for people to use, submit their request, and that tool we call the Web Wheel. So the Web Wheel tool is that our interface for folks to their priority wheel to reservation request and then see the awards that they got. Granted, I should clarify that this is only for high priority wheel tours. For low priority, that process is just bid into the market as usual, and they just get a lower priority wheel tool. But this whole process that we're talking about is for folks who are requesting and anticipating to get high priority wheel tour reservations. And as part of that new initiative or this new implementation that we did, the SkyShow would do an annual stakeholder call to discuss the summer ATC numbers with the stakeholders and get their feedback. And that is the purpose of today's call. That's what we're doing today. We're discussing the summer ATC numbers for the summer 2025. Granted, for the following year's summer 2026, you know, that's far out. The numbers, the default numbers that we would defer to today would probably be similar until we get more information as we get closer to the summer. So there's not much information for us to discuss the following summer at this point, but we will do that as we repeat this annual process every year going forward. So that's a quick background. So to dig into the summer ATC numbers, can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So the first numbers that we want to talk about are the monthly ATC numbers for the summer. So this summer for June to September of 2025. These are the numbers that we have as of earlier this month. Again, numbers can change as reservations come in, as outages happen. These available transfer capability numbers can change, but these are the numbers that we have as of earlier this month. And the way we calculate the ATC is we start with the TTC, the total transfer capability of the, and then deduct from that the ETCOM component, which I'm going to talk about the breakdown of that component in a couple of slides down. And then the final component is the TRM, which is the transmission reliability margin. That component I will also talk about a few slides down, but these are the components that we're using to calculate the ATC value. And based on that, as you can see, these are some of the energized. I didn't put all the energized because that would be a massive list. But as Elena explained at the beginning, the entire list of all the energized, the ATC numbers and their components, they're all posted on OASIS, and they're updated periodically. You can find them there under transmission, the transmission tab. But this is kind of a subset. And we selected the energized that we've seen activities in the past from folks requesting priority wheel for reservations. I'll pause here for a little for you to look at the numbers. I think the main thing you probably notice is the Malin and knob energized. Those are pretty popular energized when it comes to our imports and the priority wheel throughs requesters or participants. And that's why you're seeing the numbers dropping in the summer, especially August and September, it went all the way to zero. The following slides, I'll show you the components and why this dropped all the way to zero. Next slide, please. This is just the starting point. So this is the TTC, the total transfer capability of these energized. As I said, this is the starting point when we're calculating ATC for each intertie, and then we're deducting the other components from it to come up with the ATC value. Typically, this is pretty static number, so as you can see, it doesn't really change across the month. Next slide, please. This is the second component of the ATC equation, which is the existing transmission commitments, or as we call it, ETCOM. These are essentially, think of it as existing, reservations or commitments that we have on the energized that we want to honor and we want to preserve before we open up the remainder of the capability to wheeling throughs, including existing wheeling through requests. So for the first component, the ATCs and TRs, these are existing transmission rights and contracts on the inner ties that we some of them are legacy, and we recognize those in our markets, and we're protecting for those rights, and therefore they are kind of blocked out of the or accounted for in the calculation of ATC. The second component is, as I said, any prior wheeling through reservation, because as I said, it's a rolling process, whether it's the monthly or the daily. When we're calculating the ATC in the next segment, we're accounting for any prior reservations that are impacting that segment that we're calculating the ATC for, and we're opening the reservations for. So we're keeping track of those reservations, and we're accounting for them in the ATC calculation. And then the last component is the native load need, or the native load commitment. So this is a component that we calculate based on historic resource adequacy imports that are shown to us. Also, CAISO LSC's import contracts that are used to serve their load and load growth changes. So these are the components that we use to calculate the native load component, which is intended to allocate some of that TTC to protect for imports that are serving our load in the CAISO BAA. So these are the components of the ETCOM, which is part of the calculation. And then in the next slide, please. These are the actual numbers. So like I said, these are the native load transmission set aside to protect for our native load or our CAISO BAA need. And as you can see, some of the enterprise don't have any historic RA imports on them, and some of them have significant amounts. And they could vary monthly based on the historic data that we have and the historic behavior of our RA showings and LSC's procurement. Let me pause here for a second for you to look at the numbers. And as I said earlier, if you notice Malin and Knob, they, one of the reasons is that you're seeing the numbers dropping their ATC is because there's significant native load. The number on that one, significant historic RA used on these inner ties, and also some wheel through reservations that I'll show you later that they're using up the ATC on that inner tie. On those inner ties. Next slide, please. All right, and this is the other component, the wheeling reservations. These are the reservations we have for this summer as of February, like I said. As of earlier this month when we compiled all the data, these are the reservations that we awarded for this summer, for the summer months. As you can see, the only reservations that we have for the summer as of now are on Malin and Knob inner ties. And, for Malin, it's 50 megawatts, July through September. And for Knob, it varies monthly, between 200 and 300 megawatts of wheeling through reservations, high priority wheeling through reservations. So this is what we have so far. Again, it's a rolling basis. So we will, in the next window, we'll open up the process again. And if there is ATC on a given inner tie, participants can request priority wheel through reservations on those inner ties, and we will process them and award them accordingly. Next slide, please. And the last component of the ATC calculation, or the ATC equation, is the transmission reliability margin, or TRM. The TRM, the intent of the TRM is set aside some capacity for different types of transmission-related uncertainty in our system. This component is defined in the NERC MOD 008-1. So it's an industry, industry recognized component, and it's defined already in the NERC documents. So for the purpose of the CAISO's calculation of the TRM component, what we did is we broke down the percentage that we set as a starting point is 6% of the TTC. That's the TRM that we're starting with. And the breakdown of that TRM, or the justification, is so 3% we're keeping, or we're accounting for forecast uncertainty in the transmission system topology. So like, forced outages on the inner ties that we might, we have seen historically, and then potentially, accounting for limitations on Path 26. So we're keeping that 3% for that purpose. And then another 3% for variations in generation dispatch. So if we have unavailability for our supply during peak, uncertainty when it comes to, hydro conditions or other limited resources with limited fuels, that 3%, kind of variation generation dispatch, that would also, we're accounting for that in the TRM to potentially, use the enterprise for that uncertainty. So this is the starting TRM. Like I said, we have the capability to monitor the TRM as we get into the months or the days in the shorter term process. We have that capability. So if system conditions change and we realize that we need to allocate additional TRM on the interties, on a specific intertie, then we can do that as we get closer to the operating day or the operating month. And I think with that, that's the last slide for the summary ATC numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and pause and take questions on the slides that I presented and the ATC numbers, or even on the background if anyone has any questions.
Okay, we have one hand from Jordan Miner.
Hi, thank you. This is Jordan Miner from the CPUC Energy Division. I just have a couple of questions about the ATC values for June and July. I'm just comparing the 2024 values to the 2025 values from Merlin and Knob, and they seem to be about 600 megawatts less of ATC. I haven't had time to dig into the calculations, but what explains that large difference for June and July between year over year?
Absolutely, yes, Jordan, thanks. That's a good question. The biggest change from 2024 to 2025 is, one, we saw higher imports, RA imports last year. So that accounted for an increase in the native load component, calculation component of the ATC, and therefore the ATC number dropped because of that. And the second reason is there were additional TORs that were executed earlier this year or towards the end of last year, and those also resulted in a higher ATC COM component, and therefore in an increase or a decrease in the ATC number.
Thank you. That's great.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions?
There's currently no hands raised. So if you'd like to ask a question, just open up the participant panel on the bottom right, and you will find the raised hand icon at the bottom of that panel. Back to you, Abdul.
All right. Thank you, Elena. Okay, I think we are good to go. Obviously, people can ask questions at the end of the call as well. So I will go ahead. And the next slide, please. I will go ahead and hand it over. Sorry, before I hand it over, I forgot. These are the actual TRM numbers. So yeah, this is basically 6% of the TTC for each of these interties. So it's a static number because the TTC is essentially static. So That's just a percentage of the CTC. One more slide, please. And okay, now I'll hand it over to Li Cheng to discuss the Path 26 power flow assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. Hi, everyone. This is Li Cheng. I work for the Operation Planning South team. Before we implement this wheel-through product, I think stakeholder has lots of questions with regarding to impact on Path 26. Abdul and his team, starting from last year, they spent a really tremendous effort on this project to deploy the tool, and now we get real-time data basically for the wheel through, and we did the assessment again. I think the results are pretty optimistic. Let's see. We would like to share the findings. Basically, I think our previous year's assessment before we roll out the tool based on it's pretty conservative. The real data actually has much less impact on Path 26. Let's make it simple. But okay, now let's next slide. Agenda very similar to our previous assessment. So basically, we will do 3 years Path 26 historical flow review. Then we can take a look at the ATC, the PWT ATC award for, actually this is for summer 2024, sorry for the typo. Our assessment was based on the 2024 real data. So then we will share the Path 26 assessment assumption and the results. At the end, we will do the conclusion next. This is, as you know, we normally look at the historic data for the previous 3 years. This is year of 2022. So this pie data from here is from north to south, the top one. The limit is 4,000, the bar value, and the south to north is around 3,000. These are typical, the value in our system, the limit we normally check. As you can see, the majority flow is between this range. Next slide, please. This is a very similar flow pattern for the year of 2023. Again, we look at the maximum flow for their year and the minimum and how majority, what's the pattern. We would like to show you 2024 as well. Next slide, please. This is a flow pattern for the year of 2024. Our analysis is mainly based on the flow of this year. So this is same, basically same slides. As you can see, all the flow falls into almost all the flow falls into this range. And the next slide, we will. Okay, so this is the PWT ATC award, basically based on year 2024's effort. Like I mentioned, Abdul and his team, they coordinated and helped deliver the results. And as you can see, for the June of year 2024, the Marine award only has like 72 megawatt on the intertie. The highest is in August is 97, also less than 100. When we reviewed the data, the conclusion was really based on year 2024's operation data. The wheel through didn't have too much impact on Path 26. In our previous year's assessment, before we rolled out the product, we assessed, I think it's more than 1,000 megawatt of the wheel through. But being said, is really this is the data from the summer 2024, the PWT ATC award, very minimal. Next slide, please. So here, what's the assessment? I'd like to explain what's the assessment about. Really, the wheel through we did a system analysis. The highest impact of the wheel through from the system Path 26 is from the link to the PV West. This has like 75% of the flow impact on Path 26. Therefore, we're looking to this source and sink pair. And also we analyzed the Passenger 6 north to south flow. So in years last summer, basically from June 1st to September 30th, the Passenger 6 flow more than 3,500. We only have 8 days. The flow have more than 3,500 megawatt. And we have around 79 days, the flow actually was below 3,000 megawatt. The highest flow in 2024 is 4,080 megawatt. So this is around like 4,000 megawatt highest flow on Passenger 6. Now, with regarding to assessment, based on this real-time Passenger 6 flow and the real through the award. So we looked at 2 scenarios. One is we would like to, in the majority of cases, since it's below 3,000, we would like to check the impact. How much real through we can handle at 3,000 megawatt Passenger 6 flow. And another case really, we are interested is how about we have the highest Passenger 6 flow? How much margin do we have to allow the real through? Basically, Passenger 6 base flow is 4,080. Next slide, please. This is the assessment results. We used the PSF tool around the power flow analysis. So when we have Passenger 6 base case at 3,000, we can apply around 2,000 megawatt real through from BPA to APS, which increased the Passenger 6 flow to around 4,500 megawatt. So basically, with the 2,000 megawatt real through, the Passenger 6 flow is still below its 99% of the 30 minutes emergency rating, and there's no thermal overload concern in this scenario. Next slide, please. Then when it's in peak time, when we have the base case Passenger 6 flow at 4,080 megawatt, we apply 500 megawatt real through from BPA to APS, which increased the base case, the flow post continuity flow on the Passenger 6 is 14 megawatt. Again, this is like a post continuity flow is 99% of the 30 minutes emergency rating. So this assessment means if, let's see, we have a real-time peak day, Passenger 6 flow around 4,000 megawatt, we're still able to handle around 500 megawatt real through from BPA to APS. Now, next slide, please. So based on our assessment, really, if the Passenger 6 flow at 3,000 megawatt, there's no reliability concern when we apply in 2,000 megawatt real through from BPA to APS. One thing we would like to mention is compare with year 2023. Actually, PG&E, they added the 30 minutes rating back to the line midway warring in year 2024. So therefore, the last year, the really Passenger 6 flow, we are able to reach around 4,400. In that scenario, in our assessment, we can manage 500. Under this assumption, we can manage 500 real through when we have the highest flow on Passenger 6 during the year 2024 summertime. Considering the number, the Abdul and his team, they worked on this product, the award. Actual award is really less than 100 megawatt. Our conclusion was based on the year 2024 assessment, the real through really from BPA to APS has very marine, basically, so the marine point has very minimal impact on our real-time Passenger 6 operation. That's all we have for today's meeting. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Liu Cheng. We have one hand from Jordan Miner.
Hi, thank you. This is Jordan Miner from CPUC Energy Division again. I have a few questions. First on slide 19, if we could go back to that. Thank you. Would CAISO provide the 8 days that we went over 3,500 megawatts, and would CAISO provide the day that we hit 4,880 megawatts? And maybe a follow-up email.
You mean provide data to you? or
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. We can share. We can prepare data and send to you guys.
Thank you so much. Okay. And then finally, I have a couple questions on the conclusion slide, if we can go back. Okay, so on the first one, it says in most instances, in what instance would we see a reliability concern? Like how many megawatts are we talking beyond the 2000 wheel?
Maybe let me basically I think the most instance during summertime this language we are referring to not the wheel through, we are referring to the past 26 flow. So basically during the summer of 2024, most like 79 days out of maybe 100 something days, you know, from June 1st to September. So we have a majority of the days, the past 26 real-time flow from north to south actually is below 3,000 megawatts. So this is referring, most instances referring to that information. This is not related to the 2,000 megawatt. And even the 2,000 megawatt wheel through, this is really our study assumption. Like I mentioned, in our study, we normally look at the worst scenario, how much we can handle in that kind of situation. And the real data is the actual real operating data for the wheel through award is actually less than 100 megawatts. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, and then I have one more question. Thank you. And then on the last two scenario slides, we saw a maximum value of 4,423 megawatts. Are these realistically numbers will ever hit, or are these just scenarios that you guys are modeling?
That's a very good question. Those values actually are realistic. You know, based on my, you know, I've been working here for many years, but based on my experience in the past, I think because past 26, we really managed through the contingency flow. We reached near like 47 megawatt in the past, but over the years, you know, things topology also changed, flow pattern change. Like Ivan mentioned, the rating also changed from 2022 to 2023, then 2024 they changed back. So being said, it's 4,400 is a realistic value, and in case, you know, if we have really a peak day. You know, Southern California, but now, you know, renewable energy also made a major role in those flow patterns. But being said, is really in a peak day, if there's a need, past 26 is able to handle around like 4,400 megawatts.
All right, thank you. So then my final question is, what amount would be concerning to CAISO, like 4,700, or is it more than that?
Oh, we actually in real-time operation we don't use the number. In the past, okay, many years ago, PAS 26 was operated as a PAS. So basically, we had PAS limit. I think back that time, PAS limit is 4,000. But anyway, you know, the study methodology also changed over the years, and then we moved the PAS 26 from PAS operation to, because it's thermal limited to the contingency flow gate pair, so which really allows the system to utilize the PAS 26 capacity to the maximum. So really, this is, you know, even the 4,400 is approximate. My point is, in real time, we rely on the contingency in the flow gate. It also in the voltage level of watt flow plays a role. So it's actually a kind of around that value, but it's a dynamic value. Hopefully, you know, that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. All my questions.
Thank you, Jordan, for your questions, and thank you, Licheng. We don't have any other questions in the chat or any other hands raised. I think we're going to hand it back to Abdul.
All right. Thank you very much, Licheng. Appreciate it. Very informative assessment and conclusions. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, so in this section, we're going to talk, I have a few reminders for folks. This is kind of a new process. And then at the end, we'll open it up for final Q&A if people have additional questions. One more slide, please. All right, so, you know, reminder for folks, if you want additional information about this process, we have plenty of documents that can help you out. First, we have the Market Operations VPN, section 2.5.5, that talks about this new wheeling through process, priority wheeling through process. And then I think tariff section 23 also talks about it if you want to go back to the tariff. We also have the ATC ID and TRM ID documents posted on our website. Those describe the components of ATC and TRM and their calculations that I went over briefly. Also, we have the monthly wheeling through priority request due dates. These are posted on KaiSo.com as well under the resource adequacy page. So if you're submitting wheel through reservations, please pay attention to these due dates. They tell you the start and the open and the close of that monthly submission window. And then finally, we have a lot of very useful training that we did over the past year as we were launching this initiative. And they're all recorded. They're all posted on KaiSo.com under the Training Center section. So please go to that and look at those trainings if you want to understand the process in detail. Next slide, please. Also, I want to take advantage of this situation or this call to remind the LSCs, the KaiSo load serving entities, that if you have contracts, contracted imports to supply your load, and those are not shown as RA, you can submit those information to KaiSo in the CERA application. And if you do so, we will be able to account for those in our native load calculation. If you don't provide that information, we won't know about it. Therefore, we won't be able to account for it in the native load calculation. That's part of that process. So again, if you have non-RA, means contracts that are not shown to the KaiSo as RA, and you're using them to serve your load, then please go ahead and report those on the CERA application. We have, again, one of the prior training recorded training sessions talk about that process in detail. It's done in CERA under the Plans tab, and then you click on the NLN submission button, and that would take you to where you can submit it. Again, the details are in the training if you want to go back to that. And that window for the submissions align with the monthly priority wheel for submission windows. So with the monthly submission windows for priority wheels, you can submit these, which also aligns with the monthly almost perfectly, not exactly, but aligns also with the RA showings, monthly RA showing submission window. So keep that in mind. If you have those contracts, please provide them so we can account for them in the native load calculation. And next slide, please. Okay, so I'll look for questions. And again, if you have any questions for us here about any of what we talked about or the process, this is a good opportunity to ask them. If you think of something later, you have a comment or question or request after the fact, you can always email us at isostakeholderaffairs@kaiso.com, and we'll address it as soon as possible. So I'll pause for questions here.
I'm not seeing any hands raised or anything in the chat. You can still raise your hand. I'm just going to wrap up with a quick announcement. Next slide. So this is just for insights into the ISO grid, market operations. Be on the lookout for our Energy Matters blog that comes out about every month or so, and you can subscribe to this as well at that link at the bottom. And with that, I don't see any other questions or hands. We'd like to thank you so much for joining today's discussion. As a reminder, this meeting was recorded for informational convenience purposes, and the video file will be added to that calendar event, and the calendar event will also link you to the meeting page. That should be available in about 3 business days. But thank you so much. We hope you have a great rest of your day.